Holy guacamole, that's a big number. Hey yo, I'm Orinem. So recently we hit 10,000 subscribers on this channel, which is just insane to me. And I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's subscribed and who's commented and who's just engaged in the discussions we've been having about video games in general and also about art in the most recent video. Anyways, a few weeks ago, I had asked if we wanted to do a Q&A to celebrate if/when we hit 10,000 subscribers. And it seemed like the majority of you who did respond to this poll said yes. So I created a community post asking if anyone had any questions for me about the channel, about my content, about my process in general. And we got quite a few responses, which I was pleasantly surprised about. And so I figured I'd make a little bonus video out of them. So this one's gonna be a little different, a little lower production value. I didn't write a script or anything, so I'm doing this whole thing pretty much off the cuff. So we'll see how that goes. And so yeah, let's jump into the first question. What's your favorite game of all time and what's your favorite book of all time? Now, I'm gonna hold off answering favorite game for now, just because I'm making a whole video dedicated to this, and it should be coming out pretty soon. But if you're an astute listener of the channel, you might be able to guess what it is. Now, for my favorite book, I would say that my favorite book is The Other Wind by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's the final book in the Earthseed double trilogy. And this is my favorite because, honestly, it's like the one that made me feel the most feelings after finishing it. It's just the most beautiful, perfect ending to anything I've probably ever experienced. A lot of the philosophies about conflict and fantasy in general is really unique to Earthseed specifically. And in this final book, I feel like those messages are refined and honed in as much as possible, or as best as they could be, rather. And so it's just a really special experience. And if you're a fan of fantasy or a fan of just really beautiful prose in general, or a very compelling story, if you're a fan of any of that, I do really recommend Earthsea, especially for the final book. It's genuinely such a special experience. What's your favorite OST or theme in any game? My favorite soundtrack as a whole is probably the Rain World soundtrack. It's maybe not the most melodic or memorable based on like each track individually, but as a whole, I think it makes a really good mood and it's sort of perfect for the game it's made for. And that to me is really important and something I really admire, just a commitment to a style like that. And so yeah, I just really like the amount of atmosphere that's being created throughout these tracks, and that's especially true for the threat music. There's a certain level of danger that all of these threat tracks encapsulate in a really unique way I haven't heard in any other game. So for that reason, I feel like the Rain World soundtrack is probably my favorite at the moment. But in general, my favorites tend to change throughout the years, with only a few exceptions. But for now, the Rain World soundtrack is where it's at for me. What question do you wish someone would ask you in a Q&A, and what's your response to it? Now, I do really appreciate this sort of wildcard question, and I think I'll hold on to it for when I want to elaborate on something else a little more, or feel like I'm going on a tangent that would warrant a separate question. So stay tuned to see how I'll use this wildcard. Besides pixel art, what are some other art styles that have stuck out to you or inspired you? Immediately what comes to mind is watercolor. I'm a really huge fan of the sort of textures and floaty quality or watery quality. I find that really pleasing to the eye. And it's one I've tried to emulate with pixel art with mixed success, I would say. And some other artists have done it very well. Other pixel artists, have emulated it very well, I think. But I don't think it's quite the same because I do like the tactile, textured look to it compared to other mediums and other types of painting. Now for art styles specifically, I really like kidlit and street art and anything that's sort of sketchy and raw and basically anything where it feels like a kid could have done it or they could feel sort of amateurish, I guess. Even if those styles are all very impressive. Like I would love to be able to do them myself, but I know that there's a lot of skill, a lot of practice, and a lot of dedication to be able to do them well, which is one reason I find them very inspiring because they're, again, a commitment to a style, and it's a style that I find is very raw and direct in feeling what the artist is feeling, essentially. Is there a story behind your profile picture? The short answer is not really. I sort of drew it when I was practicing drawing really stylized busts and character designs because this was sort of a hole in my own artistic ability, being able to draw characters. So at the time I had been practicing that in my sketchbook. And so I wanted to try it in pixel art, which is my main way of rendering pieces. And in general, I really like drawing plants and flowers. And so I wanted to try combining it all into a complete piece. And so that's where my profile picture came from. I made it my profile picture because I thought it turned out really well, and I was really proud of it. So I felt like it'd be a good fit for my new profile picture for a while, and it just happened to be the current one when I started uploading videos. What is it like making your avatar, choosing faces and poses for each spoken phrase in your vid, and getting the right background visuals created or organized? For choosing poses, I try to emulate how I would use my hands and arms while speaking in real life, and I just picked the correct pose for the correct time to get as close as I could to how my body would move. As for everything else, I try to do a mix of something that I feel is achievable for me in my current skill sets, and something that's both simple and engaging enough to be worth the time. And so, for example, the swaying grass was a mix of wanting to have some sort of plants and some sort of background and have some sort of movement. And so since I have some experience in the Godot game engine and I have experience writing shaders, I figured I could write a shader to make the swaying grass animation. As for all of my other drawings and animations, I do those in Ace Sprite. And as for organizing, I usually do them so that I have each tag be a certain animation loop. Like for instance, the video games and reading again video I put out recently. Each one of those animations was a separate tag in a single Ace Sprite file. And so if I wanted to change a few of them at a time, I could export the entire file. And so it would create separate files for each tag. And so that's how I get those organized. So I guess to sum all of that up, to answer your question, it's sort of working with what I know and what I'm comfortable with, and being able to accept when something's good enough and be willing to change things later if needed. Since you had a moth character for your Celeste video, what's your favorite species of moth? Now, I don't know if I have a favorite moth species. I just know I really like moths in general. I like generally how fluffy they are. I like how their eyes look. I like how their legs look. But I guess if I had to pick one, I think I would pick the species that Lumi is based off of, which is the puss moth. What's your favorite bird? I don't know if I have a favorite bird based on looks, but I do have a favorite call, and that is the mourning dove. So from that perspective, the mourning dove is my favorite bird. What's your Wendy's order? I check the specials. If I like them, I get one of those. If I don't, then I get the chicken Asiago Ranch Club. What kind of subject do you like talking about the most in your videos? As you might be able to guess, pretty much anything where I can gush about a piece of art and its impacts on me or the world in general. And I think that's like all of my videos so far, which I've been really thankful to be able to do that sort of thing and have some sort of success with it. It's something that I'm really grateful for. So again, I really appreciate the support so far. And I think I want to use my wildcard now and answer a hypothetical question. What other YouTubers have inspired you? I would say my biggest inspirations for my channel today are PhilosophyTube, Jacob Geller, Moon Channel, Vlogbrothers, and probably Wolfie VGC as well. These folks, with their content and how they portray themselves online, are big inspirations for me. So if I'm ever wondering how to take a script or how to do an edit or how to essentially handle myself on the internet, I try to think what these folks would do. And it's been a big help so far. What's something you wish you could do but don't believe you can? Oh boy. There's so many. It's less of an issue of lack of skill. It's more an issue of a lack of time. Like, I would really like to be able to write a novel or finish like a pretty big video game, but obviously I don't have the time to do that myself. Maybe a novel, but maybe not. And video games are a huge commitment, especially the sort of scope I would love to do for some games. Obviously, I do mostly platformers, but I would love to do something a little more involved than just a platformer, even though I do really like platformers. Anyways, yeah, I do have some lore that I've been slowly developing over time that I would like to incorporate in something I actually put out there, whether it's a written work or a playable work. Is there a topic you want to cover, but afraid won't get enough views? Yeah, I would like to talk a bit about the game development process in general, with the focus on some more technical aspects of them. Like, I did do that with the Celeste video, but I'm a bit worried that things like that would be too niche. So I would try to come up with an idea that's more general and more accessible, and then use that sort of as an avenue to portray some of the more technical point of views about game development. And I do think this is doable to be actually entertaining as well, based on the response of the Celeste video, although that one was a lot of work to make sure the concepts were accessible and explained in a way that a lot of people could easily understand. But that sort of thing I do really enjoy, is taking really technical concepts and making them more accessible to people. It's just I don't think that's sort of the direction my channel is going currently, so I don't know, we'll see. How old are you? Or if that's too personal, what sort of media did you grow up with? No, that's not too personal. I'm 26 years old, but I also grew up with a lot of Cartoon Network, a lot of Nintendo games, and some anime when I was starting to get in my teenage years, and video games like Stardew Valley, and some other indies like Don't Starve or Binding of Isaac. And I'm gonna try not to cringe, but a really big one for me was Homestuck as well. Oh, also Minecraft. I was a huge Minecraft kid. But yeah, I didn't really appreciate art until I was basically through college, when I was like 21 years old. And only at that point, I started seeking out other things besides what I was comfortable with. Although I am realizing as I make more videos for this channel that the games I grew up with do affect me way more than I first realized. Is there a quote that you wish people could hear, or a quote that resonated with you? So over the past few years, there's been one specific quote, one really simple quote that's stuck with me and sort of been a mantra of mine. It's originally from World War I soldiers, and they're singing a variation on Auld Lang Syne, but instead of the actual lyrics, they're just saying, we're here because we're here because we're here, over and over and over. At the time, it was probably a way for them to cope with the frankly hellish conditions. But I find it really applicable for today, where I personally am not very religious, and so, well, I'm not religious at all. And so I find it is a good way to remember that while we're here, I believe not really for a reason, we have to make those reasons for ourselves, and we have to care for each other and make sure our lives for ourselves and for those around us are well lived as much as possible. And so while we're not here for a reason, we're still here. And so this quote, we're here because we're here, because we're here, and on and on and on, is a way for me to remember to live my life and to help those around me live their own lives as well. And so on that note, the final question is, who are you? Yeah, that's a tricky one. I'm here and I am living my life to the best of my ability, and I'm trying to help those around me live their own lives, essentially leave the world better than I found it. And for this channel specifically, I'm trying to always remember that people are choosing to watch it. And so I try to respect their time and try to remember, or always try to have something to say, something valuable, so that someone can take something away from anything I put out. And so I guess to answer your question directly, I'm a human being, like you, or like anyone else who's watching. And so with that, thank you so much for watching and for being a part of this Q&A, if your question was picked. If it wasn't, and you still did submit a question, thank you again. I did read all of them. I did consider all of them. And so yeah, I hope this was fun to watch. This was really fun for me to make. And finally, thank you everyone so much again for the channel to reach 10,000 subscribers. That's a huge milestone. And I'm really excited to see how this channel grows and develops with everyone. And with that said, I really hope to see you in the next video, which should be coming out pretty soon.